rock and roll here. Welcome to everyone who's here with us in person and those that are watching online. I start off the meeting with some reminders. The first is to please silence your cell phones. I think somebody's just went off, so we had a good reminder there. We want to make sure we respect one another's time and each speaker, so just take a second to check your phone, make sure it's on silent. We ask for your patience and understanding. It's appreciated as council deliberates on various agenda items. We do have open public comment at this meeting, and there is sign-ups right there in the front next to the podium. You're welcome to sign up. If you would like a response back, the town manager will get back to you if you leave your information on the sign-in sheet. We acknowledge staff work in preparation of this meeting. Their insights are invaluable to each topic of our town business, and we appreciate our town manager and assistant town manager, Kyler Brower, as we follow the council management form of government, where our manager handles daily operations and department administration, while our town council provides direction and authorizes policy in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and our town charter. While each council member has the ultimate responsibility to contribute and vote distinctly, the council does work as a body, duly elected to serve responsibly and ethically the citizens of Colonial Beach. Participation in each member contributes to effective leadership. Collaboration is key to productivity in local government. Let's engage in constructive discussion, remain open to different perspectives, and work together for effective resolutions. Finally, I remind us all that the meetings of the Town Council are formal proceedings and are recorded. And with that, I call the regular Town Council meeting Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 to order at 6:02 p.m. Will you please join me in standing for a moment of silence, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, with that, we do a roll call of members, and all members are present. I don't have any additions to the agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. We have several sets of minutes on that, starting to get caught up, so thank you, Ms. Oliver, for that. And the appropriation of FY25 funds to the FY26 funds for the carryover of the park projects. We're going to do a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Open for discussion?
Yes, I'd like to actually vote separately on the moving of the general funds for the parks. Separate vote from that in the minutes.
Okay, so you'd like to amend the motion to separate the two items?
Yes.
Okay, is there an acceptance of that amendment to the motion? No. Okay, so we're going to keep the motion we have on the floor now. If it fails, it will go to that. Okay? All right, I'll vote distinctly, just to make sure. So on the consent agenda, is there any further discussion before I vote? Yes, Mr. Williams.
Yes, basically I just wanted to talk about the vote to spend almost $280,000 on the parks. I haven't supported this in the past. I've always been a proponent of North Park, but as I've stated in the past, I don't necessarily think we have the money to spend over I guess it is around $230,000 on a park that's not going to have any parking, and it's very small. I'm not sure it's going to be the best fit for the town, so I do not support that.
Okay, do you want any input from town staff?
No, thanks. I know we've talked about it before, so. I
Okay.
just, since the vote's up again, I'm voting for the same thing I voted in the past, but just moving the money, so I just want to stay consistent and on record.
Okay, sounds good. Any further discussion?
Can I make a motion to just move item B out of the consent agenda and down to new business so we can have it?
Okay, so that would be an amendment to the motion to move it out of consent agenda and down to unfinished business. Would that be an acceptable amendment to the motion? The amendment's not accepted?
Second,
I first have to get permission to amend the original motion, and then we would get a second and vote on that,
okay.
yeah. But if it fails, then we can vote on that as a separate motion. So there still would be opportunity. Okay? All right. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Wood?
Aye.
Mr. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
What's this vote for?
It's the original motion, which was to approve the consent agenda as written.
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Grandstaff?
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Sanford?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye. So the ayes have it. We move forward to council member announcements. I'll start with Ms. Grandstaff. Can I start on your side today?
Yes, you can.
All right, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. We have two sets of updates I will give or announcements from EDC because of our last meeting wasn't able to give, so I want to get everyone up to speed on what we have been discussing there. The July 21st meeting, we had 16 members from downtown Colonial Beach and the Economic Development who were present, as well as County Administrator Mr. Jim Taylor and Westmoreland County Board of Supervisor Mr. Tim Trivet. The purpose of the combined meeting was to familiarize Mr. Taylor and Mr. Trivet with the work of the two bodies, DCB as a newly minted Advancing Main Street program, and EDC functioning as the economic development arm of the Main Street organizational structure. Mr. Taylor took the opportunity to share some of the work happening at the county level. Highlights of work being done by DCB over the next few months include a refresh and an expansion of the website, a new mural on the back wall of Town Center, creating sponsorship packages and pre-planning for the holiday season, Light Up the Night activity. Highlights of work being done by EDC include tabulation of the Small Business Breakfast Survey and presentation to the town manager an application for a Virginia Tourism Grant, focus on shoulder season visitation. Other economic development activity includes the Visit CBVA website to be updated and enhanced, and the tourism plan to be updated as well. That was for July the 21st meeting, and I will quickly give the highlights for our August 12th that just happened, and that would bring us up to speed. A proposal was made for consideration by the group to send to the work focused on two main areas. One, revitalization of the downtown core, and look to projects that offered a grant funding through DHCD and like sources to implement. This work would be done most fully and consistently under DCB with a diverse range of volunteers performing the task as a more traditional economic vitality function. And two, hospitality tourism moving from more passive, independent approach to a deliberate, consolidated, and coordinated effort. Ideally, this work could be done in conjunction with DCB, but most actively through the town's destination marketing organization status with the Economic Development Office by a group of volunteer business owners representing segments of the hospitality tourism industry. Discussion is still ongoing with the various stakeholder groups. That concludes my reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grandstaff. Ms. Sanford?
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'll give a brief overview, parks, recreation, and events. Of course, we have A bunch of events that have occurred. Last Saturday, August 16th, was World Photography Day, and it was a very successful event at CB Creative. There will be a show of the photos that were taken on August 16th. Photos from August 16th and will be held during the October Art Walk at CB Creative. Past weekend, there was Waterfest and Rod Run at the beach and had great attendance, ton of fun with pirates, mermaids, vendors, and hot rods on Town Hill. August 30th and 31st will be the 58th Annual Arts and Crafts Festival hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. And then September, we have a bunch of events coming up. There's the 7th Annual Northern Neck Music Festival, which is now a 2-day event and will be held September 13th and 14th from 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Hosted by the Colonial Beach Community Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce, and proceeds will support local programs, and you can get your tickets on the foundation's website. To kick off that weekend, there is a second Friday coffee walk. Again, we'll meet at 8 a.m. at Colonial Buzz for a stroll along the boardwalk. And then that night, there's a sip and stroll and art walk from 6 to 9 p.m. in downtown Colonial Beach. And then also the fall Parks and Rec yard sale and garage sale will be Saturday, September 27th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you would like your address to be included, please email Sally Adams to get on the map. And then 2 changes to events in the fall. The Alexander Graham Bell Croquet Tournament has been rescheduled to October 25th, and Parks and Rec Health and Wellness Jamboree is now planned for January 2026.
Thank you. Mr. Allison?
Good evening, everybody. The liaison for Public Works. We break it down into 4 separate sections here, so I'll start with infrastructure and utilities. There are 6 water leaks repaired, 1 utility installed, completed, 3 sewer backups cleared, 3 I&I repairs completed, continued support, maintenance, and repairs at the wastewater treatment plant, began installation of a new water meter system for the repeaters, continued cleaning and repainting fire hydrants for visibility, which those do look great, by the way. Stormwater and streets, there's ongoing ditch cleaning and rehabilitation for drainage and flood prevention. Curb repainting throughout the downtown area. For emergency and storm response, remember a while back we had a little bit of a storm that came through that took down some trees, so they responded to emergency call-outs for down trees after the storms. Cleared roads quickly, followed by next day debris cleanup, and preparing town infrastructure and staff for the impending hurricane. For community and event support, Public Works is always great trying to get the trash and everything, so the event setups and logistical support was handled by Public Works, and event support during activities to ensure smooth operations and public safety. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Wood?
Got a lot of good news with the Colonial Beach Police Department. First of all, they're proud to announce that tomorrow there will be 3 new officers who will be graduating from the Rappahannock Regional Criminal Justice Academy. After graduating, they will be assigned to field training, and once that's completed, they will be assigned to patrol duties. We also have a brand-new member of the Drifter class of 2043, thanks to Sergeant Christopher Porosky, who successfully delivered a 10-pound baby boy. Sergeant Porosky was called to a Colonial Beach residence on August 12th for a report of a woman in active labor. Rescue personnel had not arrived, and the delivery was in process. Sergeant Porosky was able to assist the mother in successfully delivering her healthy baby boy. Both are reported doing well. There will be a neighborhood watch meeting at the Colonial Beach Police Department on Thursday, the 28th at 5 p.m. Everybody is welcome and encouraged to attend. On to the Planning Commission. We met on August 14th. Unfortunately, the commission accepted the resignation of 2 of its members, Bailey Thompson and Pat Kurtz, effective August 31st, 2025. Both are unfortunately moving out of town. 2 new appointments by council are needed to fill the remainder of Mr. Thompson's and Ms. Kurtz's terms. Interested citizens are asked to complete an online application. So for folks who have good ideas on how to move the town forward, we can use all the help we can get. By ordinance, members of the Planning Commission must be town residents and qualified by knowledge and experience to make decisions on questions of community growth and development. The Planning Commission set a public hearing for their September meeting on amendments to Article 22 of the zoning ordinance regarding tree removal, trimming, and permitting requirements for clarity. The commission also reviewed comments from their 6/12/25 stakeholder work session on parking and will consider revised staff amendments to Article 13 at their September meeting. Ms. Odom, who's our interim planning and community development director, has a few items to share. And this is great progress, and congratulations to you and your staff, Ms. Odoms. Permits have been issued for 136 of the 139 reported short-term rentals based on Airbnb and VRBO reports. Notices of violation have been sent to the 3 operators who have not yet obtained a permit. These will continue to be monitored monthly as we receive the reports. A draft training manual for the department is being reviewed and finalized. The department has activated 2 new customer checklists for applications and 4 for internal staff review checklists for application and plan reviews. It's going to assist mightily when you have business to bring before the town and try to get things done. More on the way. In July, there were 30 permits issued, 13 zoning permits, 13 short-term rental permits, and 4 woodlot management permits. The average number of staff days to issue a permit was 11 days. And what did it used to be, Ms. Odom? Okay, so it's been cut by 80%. So outstanding work. Thank you so much. That's it for me.
All right, Mr. Larson?
Good evening, everybody. As far as NGO announcements, we've got 3 events that I wanted to call your attention to. This weekend, the Colonial Beach Community Foundation has their monthly meetup. It's on Saturday at 10 a.m. It's a chance for new and longtime residents to come together, connect, learn about what's happening in the town, and meet community leaders. And regarding that, this weekend, some of the town council will be there, I will be there, and others, and give an opportunity for, again, new or longtime residents to interact with your council. Ms. Sanders already mentioned these 2, but I'm going to highlight them again. So the 58th Annual Arts and Crafts Festival is the last weekend in August, so not this weekend, but the following, August 30th and 31st. And then the 7th Annual Northern Neck Beach Music Festival is the 13th and the 14th of September. If you haven't seen the lineup for that, you should take a look at the website. It's pretty cool. A lot of great bands coming. Tickets are available there. For both of these events, the Chamber is looking for volunteer help. So if you can donate just a couple of hours to help out, that would be a big help. Both the Community Foundation and the Chamber are sponsoring the music festival, and would really appreciate that help as well as the rest of the town, for that matter. And that's it for NGOs. The finance team would like to remind folks that you always have the option to sort of pay monthly on some of these bills that are quarterly or longer, your tax bills. So if you want to pay in advance, you want to pay over time, they're happy to work with you on that. And if you are behind for some reason, go have a conversation with the finance team. Come into the office and have a conversation proactively. We don't want to get in a situation where people's water's cut off, and they will work with you. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Well, good evening, everybody. Just a few updates. Dr. Addo's here tonight, so I'll let him give the majority of the updates. But I did attend their meeting last Wednesday, the school board meeting, and just a few takeaways in addition to what Dr. Addo is going to talk about. School's back in session. I believe everybody's probably aware of that, but they did go back into session. They had 5 new teachers this year. that said they were off to a great start, probably one of the best starts they've had in a long time. And let's see, so all the rest, the brand-new teachers went early in August, and then everybody else went the week after, I believe. Let's see. They mentioned some of their CIP improvements that they've done over the last year or two, and some of the ones coming up. The parking lot is over by the school board buildings in the process of being paved. They talked about the front entrance. They've got a bid, and they're working on their budget right now. I think it's currently at 1.85 million, and their initial estimate was 1.5 million, so they're trying to figure out if there's things they can tweak to help make it a little bit more budget-friendly. They talked about some of the things they've done, like the HVAC at the elementary school, new generator at the high school, card readers, cameras being installed, just a lot of things that they've done, weapons detection. They voted on a little over $1 million worth of expenditures, and then they had a closed session meeting after that. So that's about it for that. I did want to ask a question I forgot to ask during our approval of the consent agenda, because I know we had some 2022 minutes on there. Heather, are we caught up? I think you sent an email saying we were caught up. Are we caught up with the prior year minutes?
Yeah, there's only one set that's outstanding, and then tonight's meeting amendments.
Is the one outstanding, is that for this year?
No, it's one from 2022,
Okay,
same month.
so one last. Okay, thank you.
All right. And so I have just a few announcements, and we'll close out the council member announcements here. Oh, silent phones. I don't know who it was. First, I wanted to just welcome and recognize we have a special guest in our audience today, Mayor Gamble of Bowling Green. And so thank you for being here with us. I hope to make it to a Bowling Green Town Council meeting as well. I appreciated all the people that worked hard to make Rod Run and the Waterfest activities a success over the weekend. It was very busy, the weather was very good, and I just thought it was definitely so nice to see so much activity on Town Hill, but it was hot, and I was sweating after just a couple hours being out there. And welcoming all our kids back to school. The school did a fantastic job this year of welcoming all the staff back, and I know there was not almost any turnover at all at the high school this year. Almost every single teacher returned. There was a little bit of turnover at the elementary school, but they were so excited that actually my mom thought school had started already, but really just the teachers had started. But it was nice to see that gear up and all the kids get back to school. Since our last meeting, I worked with the Potomac River National Scenic Trail organization to add Colonial Beach and the Monroe Birthplace to their points of interest on their GIS and mapping data. So we are now listed with that national trail. And there's a Heritage Trail roundtable coming up. Mr. Larson already mentioned the foundation meetup at the community center, 10 a.m. on Saturday. I think a lot of us will be there, so if you want to catch us at the meetup and have coffee, please welcome and come. And as we know, we've sort of dodged a bullet with the hurricane right now, but it is hurricane season, and so I have requested that we do a hurricane prep and communications management update at the September meeting. So it's just good to stay vigilant and aware that, you know, that's a very serious threat in our community, and we are entering in that. And September, generally October is kind of our hardest hit month, but it can kind of come anytime during this season. So just a reminder to sign up for Code Red if you have not, and the Westmoreland EMS also does a phone message system out, and you can find that on their website to sign up. All right, that's all I have, and we'll go over to Kyler for our town manager update, assistant town manager update.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep my comments short tonight just because we have several presentations we're going to want to get through. We have some new hires and some anniversaries we want to get to, so Heather, if you can go to. Perfect. So we have a new employee in the Public Works Department. He was hired on July 18th, and this is Kendrick Bowler, and he is our part-time building and grounds worker. So I'm hoping he can do some awesome work with Chris and his team. We have a 5-year anniversary for a Mr. Blake Sparks, who started in August of 2020. He's with Public Works, and we want to thank him for his 5 years of service, and he's continuing to go strong. And we like to celebrate our employees that like to stay with our staff, so we appreciate his service. The last update I'm going to give you is a follow-up from the last meeting we had, and it's an analysis of our approximate net proceeds from the carnival. After looking at our expenditures and our revenues, we have decided that the approximate net proceeds is about $35,000. So that's net proceeds into what we had. That took out all of our expenses, so that is some money that we wouldn't have seen before. So we're happy to see that come into our coffers. Other than that, that's all I have, but if you have any questions, if not, we can get to John with the sewer update, the wastewater update.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, we'll keep moving forward with John. We do have several presentations coming up too, so thanks for keeping it brief.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know we're going to be busy tonight, so I'll make mine quick as well. Go ahead and go to the next page, please. So we'll stop there. As you all know, we had a bit of a rough month with July with all of the rain events we had. If you look at the July daily flow chart there at the top, you can see that there were 4 very significant rain events that produced a lot of I&I to the plant. They're on the second, topping up at 4 million gallons. And as you all know, that's a 2 million gallon facility. So that's kind of where the events started. The 8th, which led to the overflow of the manhole downtown. So that's something that we were able to get through. The only violation that we had because of the I&I events was the fecal coliform and Intero. We violated 2 times because of those flows. That returned in compliance pretty quickly, so there was no significant impact to the recreational waters. Next page, please. And there, you get into the ammonia, everything was within compliance. You see a little bit of a spike there between the first and second, which has also contributed to our storm water processes that we have to follow at the plant. Anytime we have to turn off the air to let the solids settle, that's going to cause a little bit of an increase in ammonia. And there at the bottom, you see the fecal coliform and Intero exceedances, and they all basically trend with those high flow days. Next page, please. And this a normal exceedance explanation there, but what we're still dealing with is the high nitrogen, phosphorus. We've had that under control from the beginning. The nitrogen, the improvements being made currently is Chris and his staff, they're putting in a supplemental nitrogen or a carbon feed line into the nitrate recycle line over there, and what that's going to do is provide an extra supplemental carbon source to be able to give the bugs energy to finish that denitrification process. So we are well on our way to getting the nitrites under control, and we definitely hope going into there we will be in compliance so we don't have to continue to have the debates over the WQIF reimbursements. So as everything looks now, we're heading to getting that resolved. Next page. And that's just a brief explanation of some of the improvements made. We're still dealing with some of the SCADA issues. Lord & Company, as you know, the ones who put in the SCADA system have been on site numerous times, getting some of those bugs worked out. One thing that we did find is some of the surge protectors in the plant have been in failure for quite a few years, and the town staff has looked at or started replacing those surge protectors, which is going to keep the lightning strikes from really messing up some of that equipment. So I'm personally excited about that. Other than that, everything is pretty normal, up to speed with where we've been. So it's really, once we get past this high rain and hurricane season, I'll be able to relax a little bit. So if anybody have any questions.
I saw Mr. Williams. Okay, Mr. Wood.
That's fine. Mr. Williams first, I believe.
I just had a quick question. Where are we at with the agreement with DEQ for the consent?
With the consent, so there's 2 parts to that agreement. The one I believe you're referring to with the consent order and the schedule of compliance. They have agreed to the last schedule of compliance that we had submitted. What they're asking for is for those items to be completed by the end of the next permit cycle, which is going to be 28. So they have agreed to a much lesser amount of repairs than what was initially presented to them under that report that the engineering team done. So you're looking at what was once about $30 million that we would have to commit to down around $4 million. So that was huge. And what they're going to make us focus on are the items that directly affect being in compliance. So now, I'm not saying that the other items don't need to be addressed. They need to be on a schedule. But as far as the town's commitment, it's going to be much less. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and is that something that'll be available to the public in the near future?
Yes, as soon as we get everything executed, we will then be able to post that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wood?
Hi, John. Thanks for the great work during the pretty rainy part of the
Thanks,
month.
sir.
But looking forward to next year, when we start having these same significant rainwater events, because it's only going to get worse as opposed to get better. I'm hoping that you would be able to help prepare us for changes that we can have to make, be they ordinance changes, some of the things that we would need to do to address the I&I to impact it more directly. Is that something that we can count on you to help us through so that we can be proactive as opposed to reactive next year?
Oh, absolutely, and it's something that we've already started on, looking at, what kind of ordinance that's going to look like, what type of financial reimbursements would be available to the public, what kind of enforcement, what that's going to look like. Chris has also already, ordered the supplies and materials to fix the drain pipes and the clean outs that are on the town side that would be the town's responsibilities as indicated in our smoke testing. So a lot of things are currently already underway, and that ordinance, and as far as being able to get that out to the public and get an enforcement procedure, that's going to be the key to it. We're also, with the final approval from DEQ, we have approval to go ahead and get back to the smoke testing and the camera work, and we now know that there will be some money allocated for that with the reallocation of the ARPA funds. So things are starting to come together. It's taken a while. DEQ's been understaffed. They've moved a lot of people around within DEQ, so they've been kind of slow in getting a response back to us. And we're pretty happy with what we're getting back from them now. It's just a matter of now we need to execute these things and get it done.
Okay. Do we have a rough idea of when we'll be able to transmit the information to our citizens so that they can begin making any changes that might be beneficial for them before next year?
I think it'd be hopeful to have something by the next meeting, or at least a better idea of what that's going to look like.
Outstanding. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
So what I heard you say is that we're trying to put the bugs that help process the wastewater, basically like put them on Red Bull.
Yeah, basically. That's kind of how that works.
And one of our biggest expenses that has gone up is because we are processing out so many solids that have been there for so long. We have had to use all these chemicals, and that's basically tripled within the sewer department budget.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that when we were talking in budget season back then, we would start to look into is to see if there was any purchasing power in a broader MOU with, I think King George and Dahlgren have a joint MOU for purchase power.
Correct.
And have we looked at that, or are we going to be looking into?
It has definitely been something we've discussed, but what we're not sure of is that it's even more, and you've got a really good price at this time.
Okay.
And we're looking at different options there. We even changed what we're dosing, what type of chemical we're using to see what gives us the best benefit. And we can't do it quickly because we don't want to force a violation because we're trying new things. So we're all the time looking for a way for cost savings. A lot of your concerns has also made it to me so we can look at it and get an answer for them, even down to the electricity, the chemical usage. I know that you've been definitely looking over the expense at the wastewater plant, And we've been able to answer most of those questions and have a reason why we're doing those things. So absolutely, we're always looking for a way to to cut costs.
Yeah, and I think there's supposed to be this light at the end of the tunnel that once we've processed out all this additional solids and sludge, that we won't have to use this level of chemicals any
That
longer.
is hopeful.
But, that's maybe years off still.
It's definitely years off. We still have half of the treatment plant that are just sitting there full of solids that we can't even use if we needed it. So one of the things that we're hoping to do with some of moving those solids, it doesn't really affect the I&I so much, but what it does affect is the actual treatment of real domestic wastewater. So everything, it's constantly changing. Every time we fix one component, get something online, it changes the way something else is working. So it's just a constant battle. But I do know that one cost that you're going to see stay about where it is now is the electricity. And the biggest reason the electricity went up is because a lot of your electrical components were in a state of failure. They weren't even working. So some of that stuff that we have fixed, that runs 24/7. The mixer motors that you observed, where the vegetation was, that all runs all the time. And that's an expense that the wastewater plant hasn't seen in years because that stuff's been in failure. So chemically, I don't know how much the chemicals are really going to go down. There's no way to predict that. But to move forward, we've got to get the solids out of the plant.
So we need a solar farm over there.
That'd be nice.
And then there's the sludge press, and getting that fixed has been quite a debacle about getting somebody here.
Yes, that's been a bit of a debacle. That's in our attorney's hands at this time to see
Okay.
what we can either get reimbursement back from what we've already given them to start the work and to find someone else who can do it. So, the press, our staff, IES, Jamie sitting here with us now, and then Chris, they work on that press all the time to keep that thing running.
Yeah, I saw
So-
him putting a new belt on it, I think, last time I was over there.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's actually went down 2 times since you were there, and it hasn't been that long since you were there.
No, it hasn't.
No, so we're doing everything we can to keep it running, and we're feeling pretty good about it. We do get a little nervous when it rains, but otherwise, things are going pretty well.
Yeah, I pray a lot. Okay. Are there any other questions? Sewer?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, moving forward, Westmoreland County Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Trivett, welcome.
Madam Mayor, Town Council,
How are you?
good to see you. Wanted to let you know that last time I was here, Ms. Grandstaff asked about a tree there at McDonald's. After I left here, I contacted David Beal, the chief engineer. He was on vacation, but he did get back with me, and he tried to meet with McDonald's owner. He's been unable to do that. I've followed back up with him at least twice. He said what they will do, if he can't get them to agree to cut it, then they can only cut what's in the right-of-way, and that they'll take care of that. So hopefully that will resolve that issue where it's blocking the traffic light's view, or people's view from the traffic light. The other thing we talked about last month was all the trash on New Monrovia Road, and even though that's in the county, they removed 17 tons. It's unbelievable. I mean, they almost had a dump out there, which would be about 3 of your trash trucks full of trash. So, so that's been taken care of, and hopefully that hadn't started to accumulate again, but it seems to be a revolving thing in that area. So, the other thing, we appointed Thomas Andrews. He's a Colonial Beach resident, retired from the Coast Guard to the BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals, so he'll be filling that position. Peggy Campbell filled it for 15 years and stepped down from it for health issues. So we're looking forward to him serving the town as well on that. Our new Economic Development Director started as of Monday, and I think Madam Mayor sent you all an email on that. And so we look forward to working with Dale Hendon. Comes with a lot of experience. I think he's going to look forward to working with the town, the entire county, to try to develop new business and housing and to see what we can do to work together on that. I toured the new Stork Funeral Home, and it was sad to see that leave the town of Colonial Beach. As we know, it was on 3rd Street. Well, I know it was there my whole lifetime when National Slaw had it, and because I lived right behind it. But it's beautiful. It's in the 3rd district now of the county, and some people would think that's the 4th district, but it's not. That line goes right through there, so it comes under the 3rd district, but it's right at Oak Grove. And it's unbelievable what they did to that building. It's beautiful. So if you get an opportunity to go out there and look at it, because they service our town almost on a daily basis. And I'll be attending the Region 2 meeting of VACO, the legislative program process, next week. And our legislatures will be there, and I know you'll be meeting with the legislatures as well. But one of the topics that I'm going to address, that I've had to address already, or been trying to address since last year, is these duck blinds that are located almost in the town limits. If anybody objects, they can let me know, but I haven't had anybody call me yet that's not in favor of doing what we can do to ensure that people aren't hunting within, 200 yards or whatever it might be of the town limits. And I've talked to our legislature about either adopting a bill where it's illegal within 150 yards of a commercial building, or maybe 200 yards of the town of Colonial Beach, but we're going to have to limit it to the town because there's too many other areas where we're not going to get support for that. So I'm going to keep pushing that because I'm still getting complaints about it, and I know duck season's coming and licensing for blinds are coming, and people are already calling about it and wanting to know if we've done anything to change that. So we're working on that. Can't make any promises, but I think it is something that needs to be addressed, and many people in town probably doesn't realize it, but these floating blinds that come from Maryland, many of them, and put in right down there at the point and hunt right off of our shore out front within, 100 yards or so on a frequent basis, and it's legal. So hopefully we'll be able to address that issue, and I'm more than glad to listen to anybody that wants to call me or tell me whether they approve of what's going on or not. But so far, like I said, I'm not hearing that. So any questions for me?
Anybody? I want to just thank you for following up on the trash on the old road, and for the county and the county administrator on that. That 17 tons is a lot of trash, and I think it was, it was something I was hearing about quite a bit. So I appreciate it. I hope it stays clean. I know how that is, but I think hopefully the stickers will help with that, because these, this, instead of the tag and that whole tag process and all that.
Yep.
And hopefully maybe you can invite the new economic development director, Mr. Hendon,
Yes,
to join us at a meeting, introduce himself, all that kind of stuff.
sure.
Excellent.
I'll be more than glad to do that. No other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Colonial Beach Public Schools, Dr. Addo.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I know I believe I missed the last meeting, but I would think I was out of town. But thank you, Mr. Williams, for reporting for the school district. To skip a few of my comments this evening, make it a little bit short. But we are very excited. As you know, we started school on August the 11th, especially the pre-kindergartners that you see come in for their first time being in the school districts, in the school system. Parents are nervous. It's new, and they look so cute, adorable with their school clothes and their little backpacks and everything. And we have 31 of them this year. Typically, we go to probably about 40 of them. But we are so excited for them, and they have been great. As the mayor mentioned, this is my 29th year in education, and I have probably, this is the smoothest opening of school I've seen in a long time, with fully staffed, both elementary school and high school. That is really, it doesn't happen often, but that creates a little bit of a buzz that every single classroom has a highly qualified teacher for our kids, and that's important for our kids to be successful. We are in our second week of school. It's amazing, and I am so excited to be the superintendent of this school district. Our staff, school board office, principals, support staff, transportation, everywhere. They did a fantastic job in getting us ready for the school year. I am extremely excited, especially for Mrs. Coates, because last year was so. That is some of the buzz that's going on right now, is that we have it fully staffed, and we are very excited about it. During my welcome back address to all staff 2 weeks ago, I did challenge my staff, and our focus this year was to inspire, empower, and deliver for every student, every minute, every day. And they are meeting that challenge as we have started right now. So with that said, I'm going to move on to some of the projects that we have now completed, and moving on to other projects, and then the long-term projects. As Mr. Williams mentioned, we are in the process of getting the school board parking lot done. We're still waiting on the, I guess, I forgot what they call it, a survey to be done. It's taken quite a long time. I don't know why, but that is something that's forthcoming. The transformer was completed, and when the inspection came around, there was other items that were found in terms of the baseball lights, and we had to turn around and fix every baseball lights that's up on our baseball field. So that has been taken care of. Everything is good to go in that regards. For our high school generator, right now we are at 50%. Diesel has been put in, and we are just awaiting for commissioning in that regards. Today we met with Ashley and McGraw Architects and Scheibel Construction for a second meeting for value engineering. I think it was mentioned before that we were at 1.85 right now. So we have got some cost savings drastically from 2.2 to 1.85. My goal is to get it closer to the 1.5 initially estimated as. I don't think we're going to get there because that 1.5 was proposed over a year ago. As you know, things increase. So right now, between 1.7 and probably 1.8 will be ideal. Hopefully we can get that done soon and get our project started. I'm very excited about that. And then looking long-term, in our capital improvement plan, we have several things on our agenda, and we'll get to that. One is, of course, the weight room, try to move that out of the classroom. Currently, unfortunately, not too many high school weight rooms are taking up a classroom. So hopefully if we can move that out and have a real weight room for a high school, we can also utilize that classroom for instruction. It will be for our next project. But that's down the line. In closing, it's fall season. Football is on the way. Volleyball is on the way. Also middle school basketball. Our first home football game is August 27th at 6 p.m. And we are hosting West Point. Well, actually, that's for JV, West Point for JV. And then September the 5th will be our home game for the varsity, and we'll be hosting Matthews on September the 5th, first home game, football game. For volleyball, the first home game will be August 26th. 5:30 p.m. will be junior varsity, and 7 p.m. will be varsity, and we'll be hosting West Point. And middle school basketball will start playing their games somewhere in middle of September. So we have a little bit of time with them. And with that said, that is my presentation. Any questions for me?
Mr. Wood?
Good evening, sir. First of all, I want to thank you for your stewardship in what are challenging financial times. And then unfortunately, every compliment is followed by an ask, right? So,
Of course.
someone had come to me that is trying to work through the PTA. And one of the things that is their concern is that we have a lot of new folks in town who don't know the schools the way the quote from here's do, right? And so in order to endear ourselves to the new community, they feel it would be a good idea to have an open house night, not just for the students and the parents, but to reach out to the community at large and see the benefits that the school brings to the town itself. I know it's in the nascent stage. I think they've already addressed that with you. But I would consider it a personal favor if you could at least take that under serious advisement and see if there's a way that we can broaden the school's appeal to our community writ large.
Absolutely, absolutely. It has come to my attention that I did speak to that individual, and I'm glad they were able to approach me to talk about it. We're open to it, and I have addressed it with that individual that let's have a plan and have something on the books that we can look at and involve our folks within the division and see if we can make that happen. But please also encourage them that we would love them to come to a board meeting and talk to our school board members. You can learn a lot. I'm sure Mr. Williams can attest to it. When you come to a school board meeting, you learn a lot more of our school division because we have all of our leadership team presenting what's going on with the school system. But if it's a show and tell kind of situation for a tour of the building, something like that, that's why I'm trying to figure out exactly what is our approach to this. Is it just for a tour? Are we presenting information to them? So as soon as I get some kind of a direction on what we're trying to accomplish, I think we can work things out.
I will pass that along to them. And knowing this person, I don't think having a plan is going to be a problem. So be careful what you wish for on that. But thank you for taking that under consideration, sir.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? No? Thank you, Mr. Adam. Next up, we welcome Mr. Jerry Davis of the Northern Neck Planning District Commission. Welcome, Jerry. I'm so glad you're here with us today to give us an update on the Community Flood Preparedness Grant that was just announced in the last month and see where we go from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and Town Council members. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. So I'm Jerry Davis. I'm the Executive Director down at the Northern Neck Planning District Commission. We serve the 4 counties of the Northern Neck and do a lot of work out in the 6 towns as well. The town did ask the Planning District to help submit a proposal to Virginia's what's referred to as the Virginia Community, and that's a program under the Department of Conservation and Recreation where flooding issues fall within that agency. So we were glad to do that, and this project is one for North Beach, the area just north of Colonial Avenue, for basically a couple of blocks there, where the town has a lot of erosion issues, flooding in that area. And dating back 10 years ago, the town had a Bayshore design out of Kinsale, I guess do an assessment and ultimately did a preliminary engineering design for a project in that area. So that was 10 years ago. Most recently, the Virginia Institute of Marine Science did a shoreline study looking at all the shoreline on the peninsula. That they did include North Beach in their study as well. And then most recently, the Baltimore District Corps of Engineers did a scoping study focused on North Beach. And of course, they looked at all the Bayshore design and the VIM study and the input from the town. And they published they released their final scoping study. I think it was late last year. It was just in time that we could include that and draw upon that to put the application into to this program. So again, the town asked us for assistance. We worked with the town, took all that prior study information, and were able to submit an application to the program. We had conversations with the DCR staff prior to submitting the application to get their guidance on what they would be looking for. Wanted to make sure we submitted an application that would stand the best chance to be funded. And no surprise, it's like all grant programs like this, where you just don't go in right up front and request construction money, implementation money. They want you to have a project that's ready to go, where you have final engineering, you have a project has obtained permits. In this case, it would be a joint permit, and environmental review, all that stuff. They want all that done before you come in and ask for construction implementation money. So we followed that guidance. Based on the prior work, we submitted an application for $800,000 that would address engineering, the permitting, and the environmental review. So that would provide everything necessary. It would have updated construction numbers once they completed a final engineering, and the project would be ready to submit to request construction money. So I have a little short presentation. Again, this is the North Beach. What we're referring to as the North Beach Erosion Control and Shoreline Resiliency Project. Someone can advance that to the next page. So basically, this money would address engineering, basically addressing 5 different areas. It would restore the shoreline. We have 280 linear feet of shoreline there. Be adding sand fill, placing about 740 cubic yards of sand in that area, creating new habitat, 13,000 square feet of new wetlands. Would protect that area with new breakwater, install 180 linear feet of breakwater, and would also address the storm drain pipes that are there that need to be modified to address a drainage issue there. So that's what this project does. It would address these 5 issues. And then we go to the next slide. This just shows you the area there. I'm sure you all are familiar with this area there. It's right north of Colonial Avenue and basically picks up somewhere approximately where Maryland Avenue ends there, goes up towards Virginia Avenue, past Virginia Avenue, and you see that line in red. That's sort of where the improvements would be. And then right there to the right, we pull that out off of the Bayshore Design preliminary engineering work that they did. So that's our study area there in the circled area. So next slide. Again, we requested $800,000. Good news for the town. The DCR, normally this program has an 80-20 match, a 20% match requirement. The town, Westmoreland County, because of some economic numbers, factors, you normally would have to do 10% match. We requested a waiver to the match for the town because the project was under $1 million, and DCR has approved that. So you're getting 100% funding for this project, which is always good news. And next.
We can
So-
celebrate the wins sometimes, right?
Was that?
We can celebrate the wins sometimes.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
good to get no match money. That's great. We think that, and you never know these efforts, how it's going to play out and what the schedule is. We estimated an 18-month period. I know DCR normally would like these projects to be done within 12 months, and if everything falls into place and moves along. But the first step is, now that you've been awarded the grant, would be to procure, this project would have to go through state procurement for professional consultant services. So we'd have to issue an RFP and select a qualified engineering firm to do the project. And then you would start and go through to the project. So again, maybe 12 to 18 months is what we're looking at. Obviously, you want to get through the process, get your engineering, final engineering, and updated cost estimates so you would be ready to submit. This project was funded at what they call round 5 of the grant funding. I know they've already rolled out for round 6 proposals. So optimistic would be that we could be ready for round 7, but we'll see how it goes. Next slide, I think. Yeah, so I'll just be glad to answer any questions you have. That's basically covers everything, I think.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Ms. Williams?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of the things I wanted to ask is, I noticed down there, I go down there frequently and kind of see where we're at, and it seems to get worse by the day. I noticed the town put some extra sand down on the boardwalk a couple weeks ago, maybe, on the end of Maryland Avenue, and a good chunk of it already washed away, and the boardwalk actually deteriorated even more. I guess my question is there any of this money available to maybe help with mitigating more damage, like more concrete? If more concrete keeps washing away, we'll have to keep replacing that and additional things.
Unfortunately not. This money, the way it was awarded, and it is restricted to just do the final engineering. It can't be used for any kind of infrastructure improvements or maintenance or anything like that.
Okay.
So it's just for to do the final engineering and the permitting and getting everything ready to bid up, have a project bid out. So,
Okay. Is the money available, I think a constituent asked, is this money that we can start spending now, or is it reimbursable? We have to spend our own money and then get this money back later?
it's a reimbursable program. So
Okay.
once you're under, and I don't know what the status of the contract with DCR is. I don't know if you've been offered a formal contract yet. But once you're under contract with DCR, then you start. And then as you incur expenses, which all the expenses here will be to an engineering firm. They may bring on some subcontractors or subconsultants, depending on how much in-house capability they have. And that's not unusual. But as you're being invoiced, it is reimbursable, so.
Okay. And how soon can we actually start?
As soon as you're under contract with DCR. So you've been awarded the money. The announcement was made by the governor here recently. So it's just now a matter of DCR. I'm sure if they haven't already, will be reaching out to all the grant recipients to get them under contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I have a couple questions. One is, I just wanted to thank you and your staff. You've been successful for the Northern Neck over and over again. And it's a long legacy, honestly, and we just appreciate your assistance and your staff's assistance in helping us with this project. As we move forward from getting the grant awarded for the actual grant implementation, once we're under contract, you continue to still be the contract manager, correct, or the project manager?
If the town would like us to continue, we're glad to do that. There is no money in the grant for grant administration or anything. That's just one of the program restrictions, but we're glad to do it as the planning district to provide those services to the town pro bono and assist you to make sure the project is completed and we get out to bid as soon as possible. And then to assist with another grant application for implementation funding. So we're glad to do that.
I would feel much more confident about continuing with the administration since you've been successful and have the contacts through DCR and have lined up everything. We don't want to go off track on all that. And we appreciate that, the administration of that. The timing of this, I know we had submitted for the grant, and then it was months and months and months waiting for the announcement. And so and then, of course, as soon as they announced it, round 6 was open. Like, it was like bam, bam, right? And so we're going to miss round 6, obviously. But normally, it would be around every year, like January timeframe, like it was before.
No, round 5 was originally the grant submittal deadline was in the fall. And DCR postponed the grant submittal over into the next calendar year because, the reason they gave was because of the weather events down in Southwest Virginia, and they wanted those communities in Southwest Virginia to have the opportunity to submit grant applications because of all the flood damage that was done in Southwest Virginia. So they moved that grant deadline over into the first part of this calendar year, so it was late. It looks like they're trying to get back on what was the normal schedule.
So we would be looking at a fall 2026. That would be amazing, but it seems a little unrealistic.
We'd have to get things moving. And,
Okay.
could be a lot of factors that, the firm and how busy they are and how quickly it's all depends on what firm you end up selecting and what their workload is and how quickly they can move through. And then you got that permitting process that permitting, the joint permit is coordinated by the Corps of Engineers. And we know for a fact, because we're in our offices right now on some dredging studies we're doing, and they've had some reductions in force, and we're just sort of wondering if that's going to impact their ability to, review permits and the work they have to do for this. So, we'll do everything we can to keep the project moving, but yeah, I think the most optimistic would be assuming that's what fall of 2026, yeah.
That sounds very optimistic to me. I don't want to overshoot, expectations for people because a lot of people are really looking forward to this being successful, and we want to make sure it's successful, and it needs to be successful in the next round that it goes in for implementation. So we want to make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed and all those things. You all would write the RFP?
What was that?
You all would write the RFP, not the town?
We can supply you a draft RFP for you to review and approve, and then we'll get it out. We have an RFP template that we use that
Okay.
meets the state requirements, and want to keep things legal.
All right, well, is there any community engagement, stakeholder engagement that is also a part of this grant? Will there be a community meeting, or is there an expectation of that as part of the grant? And if sometimes those things are
It's always a good
expected.
idea to, keep the public, particularly the overall public, and then certainly the people in the project area. I discussed with the staff, the need for their cooperation and probably construction easements and other, so that want to keep them up to date on what's going on and what the project's about and so forth, so.
Okay, so the next step is to be under contract with DCR when they send that over, and then set up a stakeholder meeting.
Can do
Okay.
that.
All right, just wanted to kind of get a little bit of what's to come.
What was that?
Just trying to get a little bit of what's to come next for it. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all so much, and we'll try to make this a successful endeavor.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for all your help.
All right, next up is Davenport. Welcome, the new RT.
Thank you. Got it. Presentation to pass around. While those are getting passed around, it's hard copies. It's also the exact information that's on the screen. I'm Ted Cole with Davenport. Most of you are familiar with our firm and the information we present. We serve as advisor to the town. This evening is just informational, not looking for any action from you all. Certainly happy to answer questions and engage in a discussion, but no formal action that we're looking for. And tonight's presentation is just about the general fund or the tax-supported operations of the town. We're planning to present something on water and sewer at a subsequent meeting, probably in September. And you'll note this book is dated for August 6th. This was supposed to be presented at a prior meeting, and there's a lot of tabs and paper, so staff was okay with us keeping this at the same August 6th date. Page numbers are in the bottom right corner. There's several things in the appendix that I'm not going to go through. Supporting information for the cases we've run, details of all of your debt if you want to look at it, your policies, your capital improvement program. So several things in the appendix. I'm going to go through the front section, which is about 15 pages, and I'm more than happy if you would like to stop me as we go and ask questions. So next slide, bottom right corner, page 2. Thank you. What we're going to cover is a brief discussion about credit ratings and bond ratings and introduce some peer comparisons. We're going to have a few slides on general fund, fund balance, your policy, the trends. We're going to focus from there on debt, and we'll start with the existing debt, the debt that is in place today. Just tax-supported debt. No water and sewer debt is running through this analysis. Going to revisit some of the key debt ratios and your policies. How are we performing relative to those policies? Talk a little bit about the legal debt limit and a conversation about the affordability of new debt going forward. And then we're going to end up with a discussion on your general fund capital improvement program. So if we go to page 3, left-hand side are the rating agency rating scales for local government. 3 commonly used agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. AAA is the highest rating that any local government or state or nation can achieve. And then you have a AA rating, a single A rating, and so on. The town is not currently rated, and that's not because you're not credit worthy. You just never have needed to establish a rating. In Virginia, there's a lot of good funding programs that you can go through for schools and other non-school purposes, and you don't necessarily need to establish your own bond rating to do that. But in the future, perhaps there would be a reason to consider a rating. And the rating agencies also have a lot of good data that we can work with when we're looking at setting up comparisons, which is what the right-hand side of this page is showing you. We've broken it into two categories. The upper right, we're using a Moody's database, one of those rating agencies. And the upper right is Virginia cities with ratings. There's 27 of them from Moody's, 7 AAA, 16 AA, 4 single A. And then below that are Virginia towns with ratings. 7 total towns in Virginia are rated by Moody's, 3 are AAA, 4 are AA. And we've done cities and towns because obviously you're a town, but you also are unique in that you have a school system, and in that regard, a little more like a city. So we've looked at both cities and towns. Okay? All right, we'll go to the next slide. Very high level, talking about the rating agencies, and this is the last slide about the rating agencies. And as I said, it's not in here because we believe you need to establish a rating. That may or may not be in the future, but a lot of good information from them, and the way they look at local government credits is not unlike what some of these state programs look at, some of the same factors. Banks, if we're going to a bank to borrow money, they're going to look at a lot of the same factors. And that table at the bottom really kind of sums it up. So this happens to be Moody's methodology. And oftentimes we think about, when we talk to the rating agencies, it's all about debt. And debt is certainly an important part of the discussion, but you'll see that your economy is worth 30% of the rating, or makes up 30% of the rating. So that's your tax base per capita, certain demographic measurements, income and wealth levels, economic output of the region. That's 30% of the rating. The checkbox there and long-term control, those aren't the sorts of things that you can manage budget by budget. Those are really longer-term initiatives to grow tax base, create jobs, and so forth. Financial performance is 30% of the rating, so talking about things like how you budget, how you perform relative to your budget, fund balance levels, and things like that. You all do have a little more control over those things as you're making financial decisions, budget decisions, and so on. Institutional framework, you get a very good score because you're a Virginia town, and the rating agencies look at Virginia local government as a good model relative to maybe other states. So you don't control that, but it's a strength for Virginia localities because it's a good form of government from a credit perspective. And then lastly, what we call leverage, so that's going to be actual debt of the town, but it's also going to be things like pension obligations for employees and retirees, post-employment benefits for retirees, so it's debt and debt-like items. So the point there being, when you have an outside entity looking at the town from a credit perspective, they really do take a very broad look at a lot of different areas, some of which you all have pretty good control over, but other items that you don't really have the ability to manage in the short term. Okay, so we're going to go to fund balance on page 5. A lot of numbers here. It might be easier to see it in your book, but for those in the audience, I'll sort of walk you through the layout. The upper left is a 5-year look at your general fund balance. Remember, nothing about utilities here. Fiscal year 20 through 24. Let's look at fiscal year 24, and you kind of go down that column. We're restating the general fund revenues and expenditures for that year, $13 and $12 million respectively. Then we have lines 3 through 9, which are all the categories of fund balance, right? And accounting standards say you gotta categorize your fund balance certain ways, from non-spendable to restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. Your total fund balance in fiscal year 24 was $5.5 million. The unassigned component there on line 8, the component over which you all have the most control, least amount of outside restrictions, was $5.1 million. And when you look at the trends, right, the budgets have been growing. Year over year, total expenditures over this 5-year period have gone from 7 to 12 million. So budgets are growing. Down on line 9, your fund balance is growing as well, from about 2.5 million to 5.5 million. That unassigned component of your fund balance has been growing from about 2.5 million to 5.1 million. So all of these things are growing in, relatively uniform means. Importantly, we've done the math looking at the calculations, your unassigned fund balance, and that is how your policy is written in the bottom left. The unassigned component of your fund balance, which is line 8, as a percent of your budget, and the policy states you want to maintain at least 15%. And in that upper right chart, the red line is the 15%. We want to be above that. We're well above that. That darker green line that's kind of up and down, that is your unassigned fund balance as a percent of your budget. We ended FY24 at about 42%. So the minimum policy was 15%. You're well above it at 42%. And a relatively new policy that you all have approved is that blue dotted line, which is the CIP surplus policy at 30%, right? And that was adopted, I think, as last spring as part of the budget. And you are also above that, right? So all of these are very positive trends. Not only has your budget been growing and the dollars are growing, but you have continued to operate well above your minimum of 15% and above the 30% threshold from the new policy. Bottom right, we're comparing you all to those Virginia cities and towns, right, that we introduced a moment ago. Moody's, who we pull the data from, looks at fund balance as a percent of revenues. That's their methodology. That gold bar is Colonial Beach. You're at 39.2% for FY24. You want your bar further to the right in this chart, and you can see how you compare to the median or the midpoint for the Virginia AAA cities, AA cities, single A cities in dark green, and those towns in light green, and you are above all of those medians. Higher is better in this case. So a lot of good takeaways from this slide. You've got very solid policies. You're in compliance with those policies. Your fund balance has been growing in dollars, and on a percent basis, it's been growing consistent with your budget. And you compare well to other communities of highly rated communities. The last thing I want to note is on the table, upper left, line 14 and 15. And what we're measuring there is the dollars that you all have, and let's talk about FY24. Line 14 is the dollars you have in excess of your 15% minimum. And that's about 3.3 million, right? So above your absolute minimum, the red line, you've got about 3.3 million in fund balance in FY24. And line 15 is the dollars you have above your more recent 30% CIP policy, which is about $1.5 million, 1.49 million. So we're not going to propose anything in particular with those dollars, other than to say those are dollars that could be made available for whatever purposes council might decide, primarily for hopefully capital and one-time expenditures, if you choose to. And particularly, I think line 15 is the more important line, or maybe practical line to look at, is how many dollars do we have above that 30%? It's about $1.5 million. You don't need to do anything with it. It can stay in the fund balance, but those are dollars that you could choose to deploy as part of your capital plan and still be in compliance with your policy. So that's an additional resource available to you as you go through this process. Okay? Questions on that? All right. Debt on page 6. This is your existing debt profile, just the debt that has been issued to date. The bottom left shows you that is about $8.4 million of debt outstanding. That has been issued over the years for various purposes. Again, no utility debt here. The chart at the top left is by fiscal year. Each bar is a fiscal year. Principal is the dark green, interest is the light green. So you can see either in that graph or in the table on the right, you are paying right around $650,000 a year for your general fund tax-supported debt. And it drops down a little bit over the next few years, a little bit of a more meaningful drop out there in 2036. Everything that's on the books today will be paid off by 2046. So we're talking about roughly 20 years, with sort of gradual step downs year over year. Okay? That far right column says 10-year payout ratio. That is a debt ratio that we look at. It's measured in percentages, and you'll notice that top percent says 47%. What that's telling us is if you pay your debt according to this schedule, 10 years from now, forward look, 47% of this debt will have been paid back. And sort of higher is better, right? It means you're amortizing your debt more quickly. You're not backloading it. So you're sitting right at about 47% now, and you'll see year over year it gets a little stronger. And remember, we have not made any assumptions here about new debt. This is just existing. Okay? All right, page 7. Absolutely. Understand. So a couple things on that. The first thing we would want to look at is, of all the pieces of debt you have, how many of them are eligible for early paydown, right? Not all debts are, and some debts are, but you got to wait 10 years, right? So the first is, what are the candidates we have for early or partial paydown? Secondly, what are the interest rates on those bonds? And what are the interest rates that we would be issuing if we wanted to borrow money today, right? And whatever the capital projects are that you might be considering, there may be an opportunity to leave the debt you have in place and use cash to avoid a borrowing now if the interest rates today are higher than what you've got. So that may well be a good strategy, but we would want to look at that in context of, do we have capital projects that we might issue debt for? And if the answer is yes, would that cash be better used to pay for those projects and borrow less or none rather than pay off an old debt?
I just
But-
want to add the context that when the interest rates dropped in COVID to astronomically low levels, the town refinanced all eligible debt at that time and saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, paid off several of our debt needs at that time. And the only debt that I understand was not eligible at that time for refinancing was the school. And that still is not eligible, and obviously we know where interest rates are today, but that's just a little additional context from where we've come from to today.
Right, and I understand that. Actually, previous town management did a wonderful job of reducing our overall burden with that. But we do have some things on the books that trucks that had 20-year leases, or we borrowed money for 20 years, right? And they're no longer functioning. Do we still have those on the books, is kind of my question.
No. The only truck that we have debt-related at this point
Okay,
is the jet truck.
okay.
Yeah, we paid all that off.
We paid all that off, and part of the refinancing paid off a couple of those higher higher interest rates loans. So the loan we have now with Key Financial, I think it's a 2.88%. I don't think we can get
Well,
that.
that one's actually a 1.8%.
Yeah, it's very low.
Yeah, so our investments do.
And
three times
the only
better.
debt we have in the general fund right now is the school and part of that refinancing
Right.
with Key Financial.
And with the schools, that was issued, we assisted with that. That was issued through the Virginia Public School Authority, a state agency for schools, and they do a really good job of monitoring refunding opportunities. So if those bonds can be refunded for savings, they will be on top of it and would normally reach out to you and say, you have an opportunity, are you interested in participating? But back to your original question, those reserves above your policy level may well, part of this larger forward-looking discussion will be how, if at all, do we want to use those? And it may be avoiding debt now. It could be supplementing or paying down existing debt. I wouldn't take it off the table prematurely. Okay? So I covered the existing debt profile on 6, and I was getting ready to go to 7. Across the top are 3 debt ratios. The upper left is that payout ratio that measures how quickly you're amortizing debt. The green bars, higher is better. And you're sitting at 47%. You're right on the range of what we would consider to be a policy level. Ideally, you wouldn't let that drop too much lower, right? You would keep it at that 50% range and higher. The middle one is your debt outstanding as a percent of your tax base. When we do that math, it's your debt outstanding as a percent of your tax base is a little over 1%. Got a policy range not to exceed 4%, so you're well below it, lower is better. And the same on the right, which is your debt service to expenditures, annual payment as a percent of the budget. Policy says not to exceed 12, you're at 3%, lower is better. And you can see on the comparisons for each of those beneath, going back to those Virginia cities and towns, you compare very well with AAA, AA rated communities. The one on the left, you want your bar further to the right, but you're not an outlier. You're not the furthest to the right, but you are right there where many of these communities are, very close. The other two, you want your bar further to the left, and you're in really good place there. So you have a couple things here. Don't believe, in our opinion, you're over-leveraged. You have not overdone it with debt historically. You have a modest debt profile. You are in compliance with all the policies you have. And on this slide, the key takeaway I would give you is the town absolutely has debt capacity. And what I mean by that is the ability to be discussing issuing debt if you need to for capital projects. I'm not suggesting create a capital project for debt, but it's a reasonable conversation that we want to do something, we don't have enough cash to pay for it. Could we consider issuing debt to pay for it? And I think absolutely the answer is yes. The capacity is there. You have room to take on additional debt and still be in compliance with your policies and compare well. But having capacity does not mean you have debt affordability, right? And so those are two related but different questions. And the capacity is there, not unlimited, but there's real capacity. And then the bigger challenge is often, how do we pay for it, right? Where's the money going to come from in our budget? Okay? Page 8, real quickly, just as it relates to state statute and the legal debt limit, you can kind of see the chart on the right. General obligation debt, and you've got it in that upper right table, you've got a little over $8 million for tax-supported projects. You've got about $7.6 million for utility. Your total general obligation indebtedness is, let's round up, $16 million. General obligation, what that means is the security to the lender is it's backed by your full faith and credit as a town, your ability to levy taxes. The state statutes say that you can have outstanding general obligation bonds equal to no more than 10% of your assessed value. That would be about $64 million of debt. You've got about $16 million of that debt outstanding. So according to the legal debt limit, you could have another $48 million of debt outstanding. That's just simply a legal analysis, unlikely that you could afford that. And you're getting, at that level, you're getting to a place where lenders and other credit agencies or bank underwriters would have a concern. But legally, you've got quite a bit of room to operate. And like I said on the prior slide, I think you do have real capacity. The third and important question is affordability. Okay? Page 9 sets us up for that. You're going to need to look at your book. This is just a working model that we have developed with your staff. Essentially what we're doing here is you look from left to right. Everything is on a fiscal year basis. We're starting with fiscal 26, which is the year we're in. Column B as in boy is the existing debt service schedule. That is what we're paying every year. We know that for the debt that's already been issued, $650,000 a year plus or minus. Columns C and D are placeholders for when we start talking about capital program. What projects are out there? What years? Are they cash funded? Might they be debt funded, grant funded? You know, whatever the case may be, those are where we would layer those in. We don't have those at this time for the purposes of this discussion. So column E is in Edward. That is your total requirements, money going out the door. And for this page, it's just your existing debt. When we work with staff and we look at your budgets, column F, you all are essentially budgeting from current year revenues the amount of money you need to pay your debt. And so in fiscal 26, your debt payment was $662,000, and the dollars that you appropriated were $662,000. Perfectly matched. That's why column H is a 0. Dollars going out was equal to dollars going in. In column F, though, we have made an assumption that you could continue to appropriate every year that $662,000. In reality, your payments are stepping down a little bit, right? And as a result of that, in column H, you start to see some surpluses evolve. And this is just a starting point for affordability that's saying, look, in column F, if you were able to appropriate $662,000 for debt in 26, let's assume you can do that every year going forward, and as your actual payments step down modestly, you'll have some additional dollars that you can put into the capital plan to help start the funding. And we're just accumulating those in column I, okay? So this is just laying out a potential beginning part of a strategy for modeling a capital program. All right, page 10, this is the latest iteration of the general fund or tax-supported CIP. Again, no utilities. You can look across, we've got the departments, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Admin, Technology, Public Safety, Resiliency, and Sustainability. And we have fiscal years 26 through 30. Total is on the far right. Every department has a total. Line 16 tells us that the entirety of this is about $4.6 million. It's a small asterisk that's hard to see on line 6 for sidewalk repair. That was identified along the way as a priority project. That's about $130,000 a year. That's about $545,000. So the total CIP is $4.6 million. The prioritized projects within that is about $500,000, and what that means at the very bottom is the quote-unquote non-priority projects is a little over $4 million. So this is what we're starting with for a discussion about capital projects, and I'm sure that you all will be revisiting this as you're going into the next budget. A year comes off, a new year comes on, you'll probably look at reprioritizing, updating amounts and years, but this is a starting point, okay? What we've done with this on page 11 is, next slide, sorry, is we've set up 3 scenarios to fund this capital program. Again, $4.6 million in its totality, and we've looked at 3 scenarios. Scenario 1 is, let's cash fund just the priority projects, that's streets and sidewalks, over the 5 years, $545,000, about $130,000 a year. Scenario 2, that those same projects, what if we debt funded those instead of cash funded those? I think they're at a dollar amount where you can cash fund them, but we wanted to run it as a debt funded option. And then scenario 3 is if we were to do the entire CIP. The right-hand side is showing you when we assumed debt in the model, what were our assumptions? So we assumed it was, when we issued debt, it was 10 years, 5% rate. And you can see under scenario 1, there's no debt. We're assuming those priority projects are funded with cash. Scenario 2, the priority projects are funded with debt. We do a borrowing every year, every other year. And scenario 3, the full CIP of $4.6 million is funded with debt year by year. There are many iterations we could go through. These sort of seemed like 3 logical cases to look at. Home stretch, page 12. 3 scenarios, one by one, side by side. Scenario 1 is just priority projects, $500,000, $545,000, no debt. Your debt policies don't change. And you can see as you get down to lines 24 through 31, we are simply benchmarking the number of pennies of revenue that would be needed to fund that scenario. And remember, 1 penny on your tax rate generates about $64,000, right? So think of it that way. Every penny that you levy is bringing in $64,000. So if you were to do scenario 1, which is just the priority projects without debt, you would be dedicating about 2 pennies a year to do that, right? About $130,000 a year. Scenario 2, if you were to fund those same priority projects, but rather than with cash, you would do it with debt, you would spread that burden out to where you would have less than a penny necessary every year to fund that program. Now, it's coming at a cost, obviously, right? You've got interest expense, but that's the trade-off, right? Is you don't have to put that cash out. You can consider issuing debt for those needs. Yes, you pay interest over that term, but the financial burden on a year-by-year budgetary basis is lower. And then finally, scenario 3, the full CIP, $4.6 million. We're debt funding it all. Again, that's not a recommendation. It just is a nice, clean way to do it. As I said earlier, I suspect you're going to fall somewhere in between, cash fund some things and debt fund some things if necessary. But if you were to debt fund the entire CIP, you can see that your debt ratios do move around a little bit, but they're all still just fine. And then you can see the number of pennies that you would be dedicating to support that debt. About a half a penny in the first year, about 3 pennies worth in the second year, and then it sort of starts to step down a little bit. Because remember, your existing debt is coming down over time. We're assuming you can continue to budget that same amount of dollars each year, so you're starting to see those surpluses, and those help afford some of the debt. And over this, 5-year period cumulatively, there would be about 7 to 8 pennies worth to support a debt program for the full CIP, but it's happening sort of year by year, okay? So again, not looking for any sort of approval, just wanted to provide perspective so that when you all want to discuss capital projects, whether it's in the current year or whether it's getting ready for your next budget, the modeling is done, or the framework for the modeling is done, and we have the ability to work with staff to run any number of scenarios you might want to look at. And again, I think the likely outcome is funding capital is going to be a combination of cash and debt. But you are well positioned for all of that, as we've said. You've got good fund balances. You have some fund balance above your policies. You're not over leveraged. You have debt capacity. And I would take all of that as a positive takeaway for you all. Last slide, no, 13 is not the last slide. Very quickly, different ways you could borrow money. Go to banks, go to state programs, go through federal programs. You've done a little bit of all of those. When and if the time comes that we want to seriously consider a borrowing for something, we'll look at all of these and we'll make a recommendation with staff. Hey, we think this is the best avenue. Here's why. And lastly, some observations, next steps. I've covered some of this, but this is all ready to move forward at y'all's discretion. We're happy to update it and refine it as would be helpful as you have time to sort of look back at it. And, you know, one of your next big opportunities, if you do decide that a borrowing is in your future, would be next spring through one of the state programs. They allow you to apply to those without a fee and without a commitment if you're ready to do it. And again, we're not saying you should do it, but it certainly will be an opportunity that will kick off in early February for a spring financing if there is a desire to move some projects forward. I know that's a lot. I'm happy to answer questions. The next time we do this will be water and sewer, and again, hopefully this is helpful information.
Yes, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I've got a question. Back on page 5, you mentioned, started talking about debt affordability, and you were showing us the different scenarios of where we're placed, our 15% versus 30%. Did you factor that into some of your options here, your 1, 2, 3s? Because I'm assuming that we have money, since we created a new policy where anything over 30% goes into a CIP fund. Did you calculate that and give us a scenario?
We did not. That would be something that we certainly could do going forward, but you're absolutely right. We did identify that you have some dollars above that 30%, but that was not pulled into those 3 scenarios, but certainly could be.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, that dollar amount, I mean, that would cover the priority projects and then some, right? I mean, obviously, and could also help fund some of the other projects. It's kind of interesting when you have cash that you want to put to use for capital. One obvious way is to spend cash on a project and you don't borrow. Sometimes another way that makes sense is to take that cash and supplement your annual budget, and you might still borrow, but it's providing you some additional revenue as you're waiting for some other debt to drop off. And those are all things that we would want to look at with your staff when we get to a point of wanting to put a true plan together.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another comment on page 10. I believe that several of the items that are on this list for FY26 are already allocated funds. We've already paid for them in our budget. We wouldn't need to plan for paying for them. 3 of them are grants, outright grants, and a 4th one would be a potential grant. And then I'm not sure about the police vehicles. Was that put in the regular budget, or is that still a CIP item? So that one is off the side. And the town pier, though, is in the town budget.
No.
That is also CIP? Okay. So,
What's in the budget that I see is our Elder Park and Azalea Park.
and the North Beach shoreline,
And the North Beach shoreline, that's the grant.
right. Those are the three grants, and the Monroe Bay Avenue shoreline is a VIMS grant. We would have to apply for it, but that would be a continuation of the VIMS work that they've done at Robin Grove and other places on Monroe Bay. So those are the 4 items. So that's about $1 million. So that $4 million is really about $3 million.
Yeah, so if there's $1 million of funding, true funding identified, you're exactly right, that would evolve this presentation to the 3.5 as the higher end.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot to digest. We'll keep looking through it. And you guys are going to come back in September with the utility side.
Correct.
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
We're using this presentation, the general fund, kind of as a guinea pig as well. We want to hear from you on what you would prefer to see. So when we get to the meat and potatoes, because if you remember, most of our CIP projects are going to be utility funded. And so we want to know from this presentation, what else do you need to know? How can we simplify it? So when we make that presentation, we're giving you exactly what you want. So over the next few days, few weeks before we get there, please let us know how we can make this more beneficial for you so we can be prepared in September.
All right, and that stream of thought, I think on the utility side, asterisking or indicating in some way which CIP items are eligible for the reimbursement of the ARPA funds now would be important on that, and which items are not eligible for reimbursement. Yes. I know we still got to find a new name for it or something, but yeah. I'm just going to keep. All right. The other ARPA. The maybe let it burn. No. Okay. So I think just having that indicated as to which of those items, that's just my feedback on it, so that we know where, because there were $30 million worth of needs. Which items are obligated by the consent order, which items are eligible for reimbursement.
Yeah, we're
Little bit of
still working
feedback.
with staff on that CIP and all of those, so this is timely to give us a little more direction in putting that presentation together.
What else is there? Anybody else have anything? Tom, I feel like you always have a lot of graphic ideas too.
I'm a little overwhelmed with the model here. I feel like that we're going to want to work with staff and Davenport when we get closer to budget season to work these models. It's going to take a couple of iterations, I believe, right? So I think it will be another difficult budget season if you just kind of walk in as a staff and say, boom, we figured it out, and here you go, right? I know you're asking for direction, so I get that, but.
Especially on the CIP items,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right, which aren't the fiscal year budget.
Right,
They're separate.
right. No, I get it, but the debt that could fund them
Right, could
is,
be.
right, and so.
Well, it's important to
Right.
note, Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, some items for the utility side have to be paid for by January, by 2026, on the DEQ side.
That is correct.
And so some of these funding decisions need to be made before the end of 2025.
And what the end goal here is so we can create a long-term strategy plan to pay for these CIP items. And Davenport is putting this model together so we can work together to get that in place. So we know how we're gonna come up with the money to pay for these projects. Whether we're gonna do debt, whether we're gonna raise taxes, whether we're going to use the cash we have available. That's kind of what he's looking to get from you guys on which direction, and what more do you want to see from him on the utility side, since we know that is a big chunk of money. Do you want a more specific breakdown? Do you want more scenarios? Do you?
I think the right answer is to figure out a way to utilize the DEQ funds to maximize that as much as possible, and then whatever's left over would be a different scenario that allows us to then go, is debt right? Is paying off cash right? That type of scenario. So that way we utilize all the funds that are available up front.
Yeah, and how much are we making off of the money that is you know, the general fund balance, because we've also made investment accounts now for that. And so there should be some, you know, revenue in that sense, and maximize that, yeah, too, as well.
Yeah, so I would ask that you take a few days, take a week, digest the information, and then when you have ideas or things you'd like to see, let us know. We're not expecting you to have those answers tonight, but as soon as we can get that, we can begin working on finalizing the presentation for the utility accounts. That'll be
You would
presented
need
next
our
month.
feedback by at least next week for them to be able to present that in September. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we're working on that utility presentation, and I think some of the things you shared tonight are easy tweaks, but like this, I expect whatever we present to you on the utilities is a starting point, and we're gonna need to revisit that as you get into the fall, into your CIP and budget discussions. And it's a whole lot easier to react to something when you see it. So but this one tonight and the utility one that's coming, I think, first step, and whether it's a subsequent work session or one-on-ones, whatever the preference is, I think we'll continue to refine those.
Okay, so I guess my reaction is this is super helpful. I love the model. You've kind of showed the endpoints of what we could do, right? No debt, all debt, right? You've said a dozen times this is not a recommendation. I think it's probably would be helpful to say, okay, here's a draft recommendation, something for discussion, both for the water and sewer, and then maybe later for the general fund as we head into budget season. Not a final recommendation,
Sure.
but here's something that looks pretty balanced, looks good to us, you know, between staff and you guys maybe.
Right.
Because I think we all know that we're not going to do any one of the scenarios that you put in this thing. They're sort of endpoints for
Yeah.
thinking, yeah?
Certainly not
Yeah.
opposed to making recommendations at this point. You got a 5-year CIP. Is everybody on the same page that those are all projects you want, right? Those all get baked into the process. We can make a recommendation to fund 4.6 million, but if there's not a consensus that those are the projects we want to do, it's not a terribly helpful recommendation. So,
Fair point. I think we've gotten the idea that we have more ability to fund projects than we might have thought before. So now we probably need to go back and, okay, we've got some debt power that we didn't maybe realize.
I think that's
Yeah.
a very good sum up of this is, you have options, and then the question is, what of these projects, and certainly, year 5, I know that's a tough question, but year 1, 2, 3, maybe, you know, how firm are these projects in your prioritization?
Yeah, I think maybe a scenario in between 2 and 3 where we fund the next 3 years or something to that effect.
And I think that could be something we could come back with the general fund book at the right time
Right.
and narrow that focus to maybe a 3-year, so that you've got some good direction on how that plan will influence or run through your FY '27 budget.
Yeah, one of the exercises that we went through when we were putting our stickies on the wall was figuring out gotta have, nice to have, so forth and so on. So I would be interested in hearing from staff, who are truly our experts here at this, is to crunch that data for us, okay? Because I don't remember which was which. And then we can kind of take it from that point. Because we're in a situation where gotta haves will force us in one direction or another. That would be good to know. But right now, we're working on a lot of information, and we don't really have enough groundwork to give you a decision. So, is it fair to say that we'd like to see options between somewhere in the middle, right? And how that takes care of our gotta-haves, especially on the CIP stuff. Make sense?
Yeah, I think you mean the utility stuff.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, sounds good.
That's
Is there any
helpful.
other discussion? Yes, Ms. Williams?
I guess I'm a little bit confused. There's a lot of information here, but what exactly in the next month or two are you going to be expecting from council? Like a final draft plan where we're going to start implementing CIP projects, or just, we had a prioritization meeting, but I don't know that we pinned everything down exactly. Are we going to start like listing off in order what we think first, second, third? What exactly are we going to be deciding? So I want to be prepared to start making those decisions, not be thrown like, something in the middle of a meeting saying, hey, you all need to make this decision. So what?
Yeah, we'll give you plenty of notice. The purpose of these presentations are simply, here's the projects that are on the CIP, and we've broken them out into priority, non-priority, based off of our workshop. If the council disagrees on those, then you'll need to have those discussions on what's considered a priority. And then we went to, how can we fund these projects? If we want to fund just the priorities, here's options. You can do tax increases, you can take debt, you can pay cash. We have these opportunities. When we go over the utility fund, we'll do the same thing. We'll look at, here's our prioritized as number one or higher options. If you just want to pay for those, here's your options to do so, whether it's cash, tax, or debt. And then if you want to take on the entire CIP that was on there, the same options apply. Part of the reason why we didn't do the utility funds tonight was because we've, from DEQ, found out the consent order has been shrunk, right? We don't have to pay as much for the consent. And so we're going to put together an opportunity or an option that just funds the consented items that's in the CIP. Now, it's important to note, while our consent order, the amount will be limited, we still need to take into account the rest of the projects will still need to be funded at some point. Otherwise, we're deferring maintenance, and those will come back to bite us later on. But we're going to have all those options. So when we meet in September, we'll provide you with the CIP for utility, how we could fund those. And then following that presentation, we're going to work with you to say, okay, where do we want to start? And you'll work with staff to say, we want to look at this from a debt obligation, we want to look at this from taxation. And then it's a CIP for a reason, right? And it's broken out in different years. We need to start funding this, and the council will decide how to do so. So right now, these are just presentations to let you know where we're at.
Sounds like maybe some kind of workflow, because in order to take advantage of that timeline of the funding pools and options, and with the requirements of the consent order, we're not going to want to miss that February deadline, and you're going to need time ahead of that in order to prepare for that. Is that my understanding from what you said?
Yes, I think that's very good. So the next presentation on utilities will be informational. It'll get you, I think, up to speed and understanding some of that dynamic, and then a work session on the heels of that to spend a little more time with these, and maybe focus on a couple of years, the first couple of years, whatever your preference is. That would, I think, be a very useful exercise.
And from the financial end, by the way, the money that Imboden has saved on the consent order has paid for itself. So that, the presentation we got tonight and the fact that we've had the results we've had with DEQ is proof of having competent professional consultants helping us through some problems. Because we didn't have you guys, we'd be in the hurt locker.
Well,
So-
and that goes out to Davenport too, so thank you for
Well,
your
that-
support.
Said to both. So,
No,
neat.
okay.
So should our starting point for the water and sewer be the things that are absolutely required now in the reduced consent order, plus recommendations from staff and Bowden on things that you really want to do, even though they're not 100% required by the consent order? Maybe have that as a scenario instead of, yeah, we can argue about the details once we get into that iteration, but that might be a good starting point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think the priority projects, like that word priority, is legal obligated. It's legally obligated.
Okay.
It's not that it's our favorite. It's that we have a legal obligation to it. And that's
Right.
why there's only one project on the general fund side that has an asterisk as priority.
Right.
Yeah.
The,
And then
the
so
sidewalks,
utility
yeah.
would face the same.
Right, same thing, so have the priority projects plus highly recommended ones to avoid the maintenance trap that we're trying to avoid going forward, yeah? Okay,
Yeah, Mr. Williams?
Suggestion, maybe we could try to keep the October work session as light as possible and focus on this, maybe? I don't know if that's something that council would be interested in.
Yeah, or we can call a special meeting for it either way. We'll see how October goes. I know we're getting into legislative agenda too, so. Either way, I think we should dedicate some time in October in this. That seems to me like the timeline and the next steps. I just kind of given like the clerk a heads up, because she's gonna have to coordinate with that. Okay,
One more thing.
yes.
And
Mr.
one thing I'd like to see is maybe a bullet list of expectations from council going into these kind of meetings, like what kind of decisions you would like to see in those meetings, so we'd have an advanced notice of what we're going to be up against when we get in there.
And I can tell you for the next meeting, there are no expectations. It'll just be informational. The next meeting, we can definitely put together what we're looking for from council.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do public comment. Okay. Okay.
That's it?
I
Yep.
think that's good, yeah.
Thank you. Yep, we will see you at the next meeting on utilities.
Are
Appreciate
you
it.
traveling far, Ted?
No,
Oh,
back
just,
to Richmond, so
there you go.
easy. Appreciate
Safe
it
drive
very
back.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our public comment. And before we start public comment, during all public comment or hearings, we ask that certain guidelines be followed. When we call your name, you're welcome to come and stand up at the podium. For the record, please state your name and address. If you'd like to be contacted, again, please provide that contact information to the clerk. Make your comments to the council as a whole. Be brief, state your position, and provide facts, and you may provide written statements or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to the council and the town manager. Debate is prohibited, but follow-up on comments is provided by the town manager. That's why it's important to leave your contact information. Please speak clearly, as we want to hear what you have to say, and the council will try to hear everyone who wishes to speak on any subject, and comments are limited to 5 minutes. Time cannot be transferred to another speaker. If you represent a group, you may wish to identify the other members of the group who are here with you in attendance. And after public comment is closed, I encourage you to stay and listen as the council engages in dialogue and deliberation on further agenda items. Welcome, Mr. Long.
Hi, Nigel Long, 115 Lynn Haven Court. Welcome back, Madam Mayor and Town Councillors. I hope you're thoroughly refreshed for the mental arithmetic you're going to be doing and the project planning, because it's going to be really exciting to look forward to how you're going to implement some of these projects that you have funding abilities for, based on the Davenport report. This is the first thing, I've got 3 or 4, I wanted to suggest, doesn't apply to tonight, but every so often you need to go into closed sessions, and I fully understand the need to do that for legal reasons. In the Westmoreland County Board of Supervisors, when they schedule closed sessions, they very often submit the name, the type of things that they're going to be discussing, and they may identify the members of staff that actually are going to go into the closed session with you. I did a quick analysis in Westmoreland County for earlier this year, and it ranged from specifically discussing salaries of certain public officers, didn't mention names. It talked about discussion with council about the Westmoreland County transfer station. So the members of the public and the people watching the meeting knew what subjects were being discussed in closed session where that was possible. It wasn't always possible. There was an example at a Board of Supervisors meeting I attended where there'd recently been problems at the racetrack down the road. They called a special executive session at the end of that meeting, but they identified which of the town staff were going to join them and what they were going to be discussing at the meeting. It just adds to openness of government when you can do that, and I don't think that's been the practice in the town, and it was just a suggestion I had for you all. on your legislative agenda, which you're going to be presenting later, it looks great. The only thing that surprised me was that there was no mention of bringing medical facilities to town. I think one of the biggest challenges we have is that we have one doctor in town and no emergency rooms, no urgent care facilities. I'd just like to suggest that you should consider adding that to your legislative agenda to see what could be done to encourage those sort of facilities to come to town or closer to town. The next thing I had was parking tickets. Not that I ever plan to pay one, but I think Parks and Rec must have really introduced a new class of visitor to the town in August, because based on the weekly police reports, there were 226, by my math, tickets issued in June, 260 tickets issued in July, thank you, 4th of July, and 0 in August. So I wanted to congratulate somebody for ensuring that all our visitors are fully complying with parking rules and that no tickets are being issued. I move on to my final two subjects. I am a member of the Planning Commission. I'm speaking personally, not as a member of the Planning Commission. I think that financial report was fascinating in terms of what's available from the CA, what you're actually going to achieve today. Just a personal suggestion. And my final thing is to echo the words of Mr. Wood. The Planning Commission has 2 vacancies. It's an exciting time in the Planning Commission, believe it or not, both with the CIP being reviewed every year, but also because next year we need to start the 5-year review of the comprehensive plan that's mandated by the state of Virginia. So joining the commission now will give you an opportunity to contribute to that. It's not rewriting the plan from start. I don't think we're planning to do that, please. No, we're not planning to do that, but to be part of that review of the plan so that we can take the town forward into the next 20 or 30 years. Thank you.
Wow, right on the money, Mr. Long. Right on the money.
Next up is Mr. Eric Nelson.
Welcome, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm Eric Nelson. I live at 1321 Lossing Avenue, and I just have 2 quick points this evening. One of them is sort of academic at this point. I was going to speak on behalf of transferring or appropriating the funds for the carryover funds for the parks, and I guess that was already taken care of in the consent agenda, and so that's one thing that doesn't need to be addressed again. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was Main Street and downtown Colonial Beach. I wanted to thank those of you who came to our sign unveiling. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Grandstaff for coming, and to the rest of you who came. It was brutally hot that day, but it was a very great event, and it was, I'm sure all of you are sort of excited about the opportunities that Main Street is going to bring to the town, and I just want you to rest assured that downtown Colonial Beach, in cooperation with the town and with support from our new executive director, Charlotte Cole, there's great things ahead for downtown Colonial Beach and our Main Street effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Would anybody else like to? Come on up.
Good evening. Doreen Martin, 3005 Riverview Drive. I don't have any skin in the game for this park that's going on, proposed for Azalea, but I want to invite the entire council to come to our street on Halloween. You have never seen so many kids in one location. No lie, we usually have 400 kids on Halloween at our house, stop by our house. We are not the ugly stepsister of Colonial Beach. We are a vital, large area that a population that funds and our taxes, everything else for this town. Don't leave us out. There's no playgrounds for the kids in that area. It's a residential area. Somebody made the point that there's no parking. We don't need parking there. Kids walk. If you ever been over in the meadows, people walk. They walk their dogs. There's people out walking all the time. We don't need space for parking. We need a place for the kids to play. And, you know, so many times we are left out of that area when things happen in town because the point's more important or Main Street's more important. The Meadows is a very important part of this town and should be recognized as such. Give the kids the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Anyone else? All right. Sometimes I take a break here, but we only have one item, and we don't have to make any action on it. So I'm just going to push through to the end here. Yeah? Okay. I know Ms. Sanford's probably running. Okay, so Kyler, you want to read us into the legislative agenda?
I can definitely start us off. Well, as many of you might not know, I have quite the background in legislative processes, so I love this time of year because it provides awesome opportunity, but it can also be super frustrating because you never know what's going to happen. And so the better you can plan and be prepared for the legislative agenda, the better you can be. And so I appreciate the council's advisement to move this particular meeting up so we could have these discussions early. There's some important dates we need to be aware of. In November, I believe it's the 17th, pre-filing starts, and then the legislative agenda itself will start, I believe, the second Wednesday in January. And so all this talk that we're going to do tonight and moving forward will be very beneficial as we prepare for the agenda. So I wanted to start a little bit by what did we do last year? Right, we had a few goals. We wanted to be an attractive town to tourists, existing residents, and prospective residents. We wanted to provide safe, secure, supportive, and engaging environment for residents and businesses, and we wanted to be business-friendly and promote growth that attracts quality businesses. And so how were we going to do that? We needed to secure resources to meet the critical needs of the town. We needed to obtain the tools needed to manage fiscal stress and promote economic stability, and we needed to amend Commonwealth and federal statutes to benefit Colonial Beach residents, businesses, and organizations. So from that list last year for 2025, you came up with 10 priorities. And I think you have these in front of you, so I'm not going to read through all of them. But we have 10 of them. And I can speak to, if you look at this list, there's a few that we've been very, not lucky, but we've gotten some work towards, right? So we've got the $800,000 grant for the North Shore, which is number 2 on this list. We're actively working on the wastewater treatment plant. Also, it would be 7, support efforts to adjust required local match. While not necessarily through any sort of legislation, we did look at our last grant we just received for North Shore. We received that waiver. And so there's items on here that we are taking advantage of. And I think as we move into 2026, it would be good for us to, one, look at our priorities of what we want to get done and promote, but potentially make a deeper impact. So instead of having 10, my recommendation would be to shorten the list a little bit. That'll be up to the council to do so. But tonight, we just kind of want to talk about, get the ball rolling of what do you want to see on the 2026 legislative agenda. If you look at, I have the notes here from the January meeting that y'all had for strategic planning, which I was not here for, but I have the notes here. And so I just want to go through kind of areas of opportunity and priorities that y'all had. So we had some infrastructure projects, right? We had wastewater treatment plant. We had North Beach erosion, town resiliency plan, asset management plan and replacement schedule, and then the Dwight Avenue extension. Another opportunity was livability and placemaking. So we had the town pier, economic development. Another opportunity was public safety, communications and civic engagement, as well as some other smaller topics. And so I think as we move into 2026, much of our legislative priorities should be based off of CIP projects, since we've identified those as major needs, while adding in and sprinkling in some other projects and resources that we'll need. And so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to y'all to just kind of start the conversation of, what would you like to see? And I think following this meeting, we'll have some homework for y'all to kind of come up with your top 3 to 5, and so we can come back in a future meeting and really hash out and finalize our priorities for the 2026 legislative agenda.
You want to explain what pre-filing is?
Yeah, pre-filing is just the opportunity for bills to be submitted essentially, as I said, early, and so those can be numbered. You don't have to wait for pre-filing, you can do other things, but it gives us an opportunity to see what bills are coming out. It gives us an opportunity to work with our legislators to potentially submit bills early. And so it's just another, like I said, opportunity to be ready.
Part of the last year, we didn't approve the legislative agenda, I think, until the December meeting, and that was too late for that process. So we've pushed it forward now so that we can have some of these discussions. For, those that have been here, you guys probably already know, but maybe for some of our new staff, the legislative request is often a request for support or sponsorship. It is sometimes a bill that happens at the state or federal level. Sometimes it's money from grants or support from our legislators in letters of support for grants we're going for, things like that. Oftentimes, when we get to like the real nuts and bolts of legislative agendas and getting funding out of that, these have to be items which are data-driven, have a scope defined to them, are documented well, have done community outreach for. So you don't want to just like shoot for the moon in this like blanket, undefined way. You kind of want to use it to its best advantage when you have a project that you have a project scope already written for, then you'll be able to tee it up better, right? So when you ask for it and then they say, okay, great, give me more information, you're not fumbling the ball, right? Like you're like, and here's a report, and that just makes the whole process go a lot smoother. So in that, we have been successful in many items. From the CIP priorities work session, the top 5 that had the red stickers, remember, that we're obligated to, are kind of all legislative items that we still need money for wastewater, right? We got money, but we still need more money for wastewater. I&I, same deal, sidewalks. And one of the things on sidewalks is we put that on this one, it's number 4. Through VML, went through a course from the Federal Department of Transportation on, there is sidewalk money out there. There's actually a lot of money out there, but you can't get it unless you have what's called a zero plan. And a zero plan is very specifically written for public safety for 0 deaths, and it has to meet all these criteria. But you can apply for a grant to get the plan, and then once you have the plan, then you get the grant for the implementation. So if we want to kind of tee those things up, and just to get everybody thinking about it, tonight's not for voting on this, it's just to look at what we had on the list and come back next month with ideas of some things that maybe we would add or take off, or however we want to queue it up for the focus, because it takes time and energy then to go after these things. So we don't want to be too sprawled out. I know there's been a request from some members of our community and the county about maybe also supporting, as Mr. Trivett said, the waterfowl hunting, the blind licensing boundary, and just throwing that out there as something that I know has been a request. In like prior years, I think the Main Street in Northern Neck 250th, that request support, and we weren't asking for money, we were just saying we're gonna help add our name to the support list. Sometimes that is partnerships, it's help also. Do you wanna, is it tonight, or do you wanna think about everything and come back next month with more ideas once you've had some time? Yeah, Mr. Williams.
Just some questions. The items that are on here, is this what you said was already on the last list for 2025?
This is the
Yes, this is the
2025.
2025.
This is our current legislative agenda.
Okay.
It's not what we would, it could be, or it could be different than this.
Because I remember in the past, it was like 3 or 4 items or something like that. So that's what you were talking about, Kyler. Question, does something like the Dwight Avenue extension even qualify, since we're already allotted VDOT funds and it's already state funded, would that even qualify or not?
Yeah, I don't, if there's nothing teed up for it, like some of the other items on this list too, then maybe that's not something we use to ask our legislators for. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, you can ask for anything, right? You need to be realistic with your expectations. So if there's an appropriation bill, they could potentially grab a project that you have and add that money to it. But you just never know. That's why legislative sessions, like I said, come with great opportunity, but they can also be very frustrating because you just don't know what priorities the legislators will have. So you can keep that on there, but you just never know if they're going to throw it into an actual bill.
Thank you.
I think it's also how you phrase it, right? So like the Dwight Avenue piece, although we're asking for a successful completion, it's really a emergency services need, right? So it's how you present it to our legislators to understand the need or requirement for that, right? So it's really about explaining each of these individual things in the correct way.
And as many of you know, legislators, even like yourselves, you want the information sooner than later. You want specific details, and they want to get wins where they can, right? So we need to be realistic with our expectations, get them the information as quickly as we can, and have all the details, supporting documents ready to go, so if they start moving down the process with those projects, we have it.
So like on that stream of thought and, kind of by David bringing that up with the VDOT extension, like one suggestion I would have is I think that both of those two line items, the sidewalks and the VDOT extension, actually could just be one item that requests support for writing a zero-plan roadway safety strategy. And those strategies, those zero plans, then provide the avenue to funding from the Federal Department of Transportation for many kinds of things, roadways and creating roadways, but also pedestrian safety and crosswalks and many other things too. But if we don't have the plan that meets all the checkbox criterias of the implementation money, we can't open that door at all, and it's literally like millions of dollars. So, that'd just be kind of one thing. I think we could reword that, and it would just be one thing, and it would just be supporting, zero death as a public safety strategy for our roads and streets and sidewalks.
Honestly, I think taking all of this under advisement, I would feel more comfortable digesting some of this and having conversation with some town leadership with specific questions I have, as opposed to, we all have checklists, and we have to find, wish lists, and we have to find out what's a wish list, what's a realistic wish, that sort of thing. So I'd rather do my spitballing with town management, honestly, as opposed to doing it in this forum, so that way, when we get back together, then we'll all have, I want something different than what David will want, and so forth and so on. But at least we'll have put together a strategy for what we're looking to do. So me personally, I would be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for me too. I have one follow-up question on the paring the list down though. 10 doesn't seem like a huge number to me, but I don't think I understand the limitations. Can either one of you or anyone speak to why 10 is too many and what's a good number and why?
There is no perfect number, right? I mean, you could submit 100, but you have to recognize that our legislators are receiving requests from all their other citizens, their constituents, and so we need to be very impactful with what we request. So 10 might be the number. But if we figure out that there's really 3 that are just dire need, we put those on there and we can add more to it. But we just need to make sure that however many we submit, those are our needs. So 10 could be the number, could be less, could be more.
You just need to be fully baked or more baked than maybe some of these have been in the past.
So oftentimes, if you have it documented on the CIP, that is one piece of supportive material that you give to your legislator. So starting with the items that are on the CIP and thinking about how they're going to get funded, which couples really well with Davenport right now. There are items on that list that we know we can't fund. The wastewater treatment plant, we know we do not have the money for that right now, right? I mean, we're gonna get options for bonds and other things and financing, and we're gonna try to do what we can. But like, that one is sort of just like, just hit in your face obvious, right? And that would be, and we have a lot of documentation on it. We know what the problem is, we know why we have the problem, we know how serious the problem is, you know, those kinds of things. So, and it's on the CIP. So, you know, I would say look through this list and look at that CIP and look at the Davenport, kind of all of it to, you know, together.
Yeah, so I would say for this meeting, we've brought up the topic, right? We've seen what we've done in the past, kind of what the priorities were in the last strategic planning retreat. And so I think our expectation as staff now is hopefully y'all as council will come up with your list of what you believe is a priority, kind of as a homework project, and then let us know what those are so we can start putting those together. And then as a council, you'll decide what needs to be on the actual agenda. So I don't know if we want to put a deadline on when either to have it, your recommendations to staff, or do we want to have those by the next council meeting? What would you like to see, Mayor?
I
Next
would
one
be
is September.
personally
Yeah.
happy with the next council meeting.
So have your list ready by next council meeting?
And
council meeting?
so maybe others can't commit to that, but I can have my list for you.
Because that would give you what, a
I think what
month?
the staff needs is feedback from us prior to the next council meeting. So we all have one-on-ones, right, with Natasha, Kyla, or both. So at those,
Yeah. and
give
the-
some feedback so that they can come back with something that makes sense from what they've heard from everyone.
Well, my one-on-one is the day of the council meeting.
Oh.
So,
But you don't have one before it at all?
no,
Oh,
no. So is by next council meeting, and not saying that necessarily I deliver it to you at the council meeting, but so by my next one-on-one, would that be sufficient time in your opinion?
because it's Labor Day.
Yeah, if you could have it to us by the next council meeting at the latest, right?
Right.
If we have them by your one-on-one, we can stack all those into a document, so when we meet, we'll have them all.
Rick, I'm sorry, I apologize. We don't have a work session in September because it's Labor Day. So I was thinking you would have a one-on-one from the work session where we don't really have the meeting, and then ahead of that.
So let's do it this way. I'll commit to having you my list in 2 weeks. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
Is the council okay with that timeline of getting us your priorities?
That's for me. I'm not committing for anybody else, but I would be happy with 2 weeks.
How many are you looking for? Like, can you share what, if there's things new added that aren't on this list, can you share them with the rest of council so we all see other options that we may not have thought of?
So I think what we would do is you would submit your list, and then at the next council meeting, we'll have them all. And then y'all will kind of decide of what's been spoken about, what are your top priorities?
What I'm saying though is if we have, say, Rick submits his in 2 weeks and I do the same and Tom, if we have them all out there, why not let all of council know what's floating out there so we can start thinking about those?
Well, that's what
versus
we're going to
waiting-
discuss at the council meeting.
Yeah, but the night of, he's gonna want a
So-
decision, and we will have
Here's-
had 2 weeks that we maybe could have used that information to
Here's
help
what we'll
make
do
us
then.
decision.
If y'all can commit to the next 2 weeks getting us your priorities, we can put together that list and share it out with the council so that you have it early as well.
Okay, you will give us a draft at least 1 week prior to our regular meeting in September.
Correct.
Okay, there we go.
Does that work? Perfect.
That's a good suggestion, David. Okay, is there any further discussion on this? All right, I am going to, there's no closed meeting, I'm gonna adjourn. It's 8:34 PM. Everyone have a wonderful Wednesday night.
You just say-